Welcome to History Recapped, where we turn centuries of history into stories that fit your schedule. Today's episode explores one of the most dramatic turning points in European history, the Renaissance and the Reformation, a time when art, science, religion, and power collided to reshape the continent forever. From the rediscovery of classical ideas to the birth of modern thought, and from Martin Luther's protest to the fragmentation of the Catholic Church, this was a true cultural revolution. Let's explore how Europe went from medieval to modern in just a few centuries. Part 1. The world before the transformation. Before the Renaissance and the Reformation, Europe was largely shaped by feudalism, Catholicism, and medieval scholasticism. The Church dominated education, kings ruled with divine right, and questioning traditional authority, political or religious, was dangerous. But major changes were brewing. The Black Death had decimated Europe's population. The Crusades had opened trade routes to the east, and the fall of Constantinople in 1453 brought a flood of classical texts into Europe via fleeing scholars. Out of this moment of crisis and contact came a new spirit of curiosity. Part 2. The Renaissance begins. The word Renaissance means rebirth, and it began in Italy, particularly in cities like Florence, Venice, and Rome around the 14th century. Why Italy? It sat on Mediterranean trade routes. Wealthy merchant families like the Medici sponsored artists and thinkers, and Italians lived among the ruins of the Roman Empire, a daily reminder of classical greatness. This was the beginning of humanism, a movement that emphasized the study of classical texts, individual achievement, and secular learning alongside religion. Part 3. Revolution in art and science. The Renaissance wasn't just about books. It transformed art, architecture, and science. Painters like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael introduced perspective, realism, and emotion into their work. Leonardo's Vitruvian Man and Mona Lisa explored anatomy and identity. Michelangelo sculpted the David and painted the Sistine Chapel, combining physical perfection with spiritual grandeur. At the same time, thinkers like Copernicus and later Galileo began to challenge the geocentric view of the universe, placing the sun, not Earth, at the center of the cosmos. And crucially, Johannes Gutenberg's invention of the printing press in the mid-1400s made books cheaper, faster to produce, and more widely available, fueling the spread of new ideas. The Renaissance spread beyond Italy, to France, the Low Countries, Germany, and England, each region developing its own flavor. In the north, artists like Albrecht Dürer and Jan van Eyck pioneered new techniques in oil painting and detail. Thinkers like Erasmus blended humanism with Christian reform, calling for moral renewal inside the Church. The Renaissance, once focused on art and antiquity, now took on spiritual and social dimensions, setting the stage for even deeper change. By the early 1500s, many Europeans were frustrated with the Catholic Church. It had grown wealthy, powerful, and often corrupt. Priests were selling indulgences, payments to reduce time in purgatory, and popes lived like kings. Then came Martin Luther, a German monk and theologian. In 1517, Luther nailed his 95 Theses to a church door in Wittenberg, criticizing indulgences and calling for a return to Scripture. Luther's ideas spread like wildfire, thanks in part to the printing press. He rejected papal authority, translated the Bible into German, and taught that salvation came by faith alone, not church rituals. The Church excommunicated him, but it was too late. The Protestant Reformation had begun. Luther's protest inspired others. John Calvin in Switzerland emphasized predestination and strict morality. Ulrich Zwingli, an Anabaptist, promoted more radical reforms. In England, King Henry VIII broke with Rome for political reasons, creating the Church of England when the Pope wouldn't annul his marriage. Across Europe, the Reformation shattered religious unity, leading to a century of religious wars, persecutions, and upheavals. Notable events included the German Peasants' War, the French Wars of Religion. The 30 Years' War, which devastated much of Central Europe, the Catholic Church didn't collapse. It fought back. The Council of Trent, 1545-1563, clarified Catholic doctrine, addressed abuses and reaffirmed traditional practices. New religious orders like the Jesuits emerged, focused on education and missionary work. The Baroque art style, dramatic, emotional and religious, was part of this Catholic revival. While Europe would never again be united under one church, Catholicism remained dominant in places like Spain, Italy and parts of Eastern Europe. Part 8. Europe transformed. By the end of the 17th century, Europe was completely changed. The Renaissance had revived classical knowledge, sparked new discoveries, and celebrated human potential. The Reformation had reshaped religious belief, broken church authority, and paved the way for modern nation-states. Together, they led to the rise of secular governments, the spread of literacy, greater individual freedom of thought, and the early foundations of the Enlightenment. The Renaissance and Reformation weren't just historical events. They were revolutions in how people saw the world, themselves, and the divine. From cathedrals to printing presses, from Florence to Wittenberg, they lit the fuse of the modern age. Thanks for watching History Recapped. If you enjoyed this journey through Europe's transformation, like the video, subscribe and comment below. What moment in history should we explore next?